Have you ever borrowed something from a friend and then disaster strikes? You lose it? That sinking feeling in your stomach? The panic? It's the worst, right? You start thinking, how am I ever going to explain this? How can I replace it? Well, today we are diving into a story from the Bible that takes this exact situation and gives it a miraculous twist. It's a story that shows just how much God cares, not just about the big, epic stuff, but about the small, everyday worries that keep us up at night. The story starts with a group known as the Company of the Prophets. These were students, apprentices learning from the great prophet Elisha. Think of it like a bustling school, a community of people dedicated to their faith and their teacher. The problem was, their school was getting a little too popular. They were outgrowing their space. It was cramped. People were bumping elbows, and it was clear they needed to expand. So, one of the prophets goes to Elisha with a very practical suggestion. "Look," he says, "the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let's go to the Jordan River. There's plenty of wood there. Each of us can cut a log, and we can build ourselves a new place to live." It was a great, proactive plan. They weren't just complaining, they had a solution. Elisha, being their mentor, gives them the green light. "Go," he says. But then, one of the students gets a bit bold. He asks, "Won't you please come with your servants?" He wanted his teacher there, maybe for guidance, maybe for protection, or maybe just for the encouragement of having their leader with them. And Elisha, ever the supportive mentor, agrees. "I will," he replies, and so he joins them on their construction project. They all head down to the Jordan River, a place buzzing with life and significance in their history. The sound of chopping fills the air as the prophets get to work, each one felling a tree to contribute to their new home. It's a picture of community, everyone pitching in, working together towards a common goal. But then it happens. That moment every person who has ever borrowed a tool dreads. One of the men is swinging his axe, putting his back into it, when the iron axe head flies off the handle. With a plunk, it disappears into the murky water of the Jordan River. Total silence. The chopping stops. The man freezes. You can just imagine the blood draining from his face. He cries out in anguish, "Oh no, my lord! It was borrowed." This wasn't just any old mistake. This was a huge deal back then. An iron axe head was an incredibly valuable, expensive tool. It might have been the equivalent of a whole month's wages, or even more. For this student, who was likely poor, replacing it would have been a catastrophic financial burden. And on top of that, there's the shame of having to tell the owner that you lost their precious possession. His cry is one of pure desperation. Elisha hears the man's cry and calmly walks over. He doesn't scold him. He doesn't say, "Well, you should have been more careful." Instead, he asks a simple, direct question. Where did it fall? He's focused on the solution, not the problem. The man, probably still shaking, points to the exact spot in the river where the axe head sank. Elisha then does something strange. He cuts a stick from a nearby tree and throws it into the water at that very spot. Now, what do you think would happen if you threw a piece of wood into a river? It would float, right? And what happens to a heavy piece of iron? It sinks. That's just basic physics. But this is where the story turns from a relatable accident into an unforgettable miracle. As the stick hits the water, the iron axe head does the impossible. It bobs up from the depths and floats on the surface. It defied the laws of nature. Elisha looks at the stunned prophet and says, "Lift it out." The man reaches in, his hands probably trembling, and pulls his borrowed tool safely from the water. The crisis was over. The debt was averted. The shame was gone. All thanks to a quiet, powerful miracle. So, why is this seemingly small story even in the Bible? It's not about parting a sea or calling down fire from heaven. It's about a lost tool. But that's precisely why it's so powerful. It reveals the character of God in a deeply personal way. It shows us that the God of the universe, the creator of galaxies and mountains, is also intimately concerned with the things that concern us. Think about it. God cared about this man's anxiety. He cared about his potential debt. He cared about his reputation and the promise he made to the person he borrowed the axe from. No problem is too small for God's attention. The thing that's making your stomach churn, the worry that seems insignificant in the grand scheme of things, God sees it, and He cares. This story teaches us about divine compassion. Elisha's response mirrors God's heart. He didn't dismiss the man's panic. He met him in it. In the same way, we're encouraged to bring our small problems to God. Whether it's a financial stress, a broken relationship, or a lost set of keys, He is attentive to the details of our lives. It also shows us that God's solutions often come in unexpected ways. Who would have thought a simple stick would be the key to retrieving a heavy piece of iron? It reminds us to be open to how God might work. It won't always be a lightning bolt from the sky. Sometimes it's a quiet, gentle, almost unbelievable intervention that solves our problem. This incredible event wasn't just about the axe head. It was a lesson for all the prophets watching. It was a demonstration of God's power and His personal care for His people. It solidified their faith in Elisha's God, showing them that He was present with them, not just in the temple, but by a riverside, in the middle of a construction project. So, the next time you lose something you borrowed, or face a problem that feels both overwhelming to you and too small to bother God with, remember the floating axe head. Remember the prophet who cried out in desperation, and the God who answered in the most remarkable way. Take your anxieties, big and small, to Him. You might just be surprised at how a simple stick, in the hands of a caring God, can make the impossible float. Thanks so much for watching and exploring this amazing story with me today. If this encouraged you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into these incredible accounts. We'll see you in the next video.